All right, guys. So today we're just going to do notes on eyewitness procedures. We've been learning about how eyewitnesses can be faulty, but now we're going to go over some procedures that we've been changing over the past, honestly, like the last decade even. Some states did it previously, but a lot of states, literally in the last decade or like up to 15 years, have just now made these procedures into like policy to use. But doing these couple procedures will help us hopefully stop having the problem with eyewitness testimony, because it will help them just be less likely to pick someone that didn't do it. And you'll see that as we go through the procedures. So the first procedure that is supposed to be done always now is called the double-blind procedure. So a double-blind lineup means that the administrator in the room, so usually the police officer who's in the room with the eyewitness, setting up the lineup, does not know who the suspect is. So if you didn't know, usually in a lineup, like we're looking at this one, there's only one suspect. The other men might have similar, well, they should look similar to the suspect. So everyone should look the way the eyewitness described them to look. So they should all fit the description. But the other men probably, they don't think actually did it. Like that's not really their MO, or they're not even criminals. They're just people they pulled in that fit the description, that lived in the area or were seen in the area. Sometimes they even know for a fact that some of the men didn't do it, like their suspect is airtight. I mean, their alibi is airtight. And the reason why they do that is because if you have an eyewitness come in and pick a person that they know their alibi is airtight, well, then you automatically know that eyewitness didn't really get a very good look at their suspect, because they're picking someone you know couldn't have done it. So that would kind of weed out eyewitnesses that aren't very good. But usually there's only one true person that they think did it. So like they were, they have priors, they were in the area, they fit the descriptions, like they're the true suspect. And we don't want the police officer in the room who's administering the lineup to know who that is. Now, why that might be is if they know who it is, then they might accidentally mislead the witness with verbal or nonverbal cues. Now, I'm not saying that they're doing that intentionally. They're probably not doing it intentionally. It's more than likely inadvertent, which means on accident. But if they know who it is, then they might, just say their name in a slightly different way, hover on that person, kind of like look back and forth at the witness and them, to see how they're looking. It's just our nature that if we know, like, we're going to pay more attention on that person. So we might accidentally kind of give it away who we think the suspect is. In that, if that were the case, if that happened, then the eyewitness might be more likely to think, oh, they think that's the bad guy. Like he must have been in the area. Like it's going to build their confidence to think that's the person, when just because it's our suspect doesn't mean it's the person. It just means he fits the criteria. All right, so the person in the room who's conducting the test shouldn't know who the actual suspect is. They should have no idea about the case. They should just be conducting the test. Okay, so that's called the double-blind procedure, that they don't know, no one in the room knows. We're seeing if the eyewitness knows. The second part, or the second rule that we're supposed to be following now for eyewitness procedures, is sequential presentation of lineups. So what we used to do, it was simultaneous. So they could look at them all at once. Okay, so you have your pictures, here they are, here's all your suspects, look at them. Same thing with like in a lineup, like you'd line them all up in a row and you just look at them back and forth. We're not supposed to do that anymore. So they shouldn't be all shown at the same time. So not only are we doing blind administration, we should be showing them one by one, or sequential, meaning one after the other. So only showing one at a time. Now, why you would want to do that is it's just been proven to significantly increase the overall accuracy of eyewitness identifications. So why that might be, if you just kind of think about it logically, if you have all six at once, okay, because we are required to have at least six. So if you have all six at once, what you're going to start doing is you're going to start comparing them to each other. Like in your head, you're going to start kind of comparing them to each other, saying like, which one's the closest, which one's the closest. Instead of, what I want you to do is I want you to look at one picture and say, is this the guy? Is this the guy from my memory? That's it. I want you to compare this picture right now. Is he the man in my memory? I don't want you to look at 6 men in a whole big group and think which one looks the most like the man in my memory. Most doesn't matter. Okay. Like no matter if they are close to resembling them or not, like close isn't good enough. I don't want to send a man to prison because he looked close to what my suspect looked like. I want to send the man to prison that did it. Okay. So they've done a series of trials that when you practice one at a time, they're just more likely to not compare and just be thinking about them against their memory. It also makes the eyewitness not know how many you're going to show. Sometimes if they know that this is all 6, like this is all the 6 possible answers, they kind of feel obligated to choose one. It's not that it's not that they mean to choose the wrong person or they're trying to send the wrong person to prison. It's just when you have been the victim of a terrible crime and now you're presented with 6 people, you want a person to be in there to be the person who did this to you because you want to seek justice. It's what you want to happen. So if you're shown all 6, like you're thinking, which one is it? Which one of these 6 men did it to me? Because I want, like you want it to be over. You want to find the person. You want to have that kind of validation. Whereas if I'm showing you one at a time, they're forced to think, is this the man that fits my memory? Is this the same person? No. And they don't know how many you're going to show them. You could be doing it all day because we only have to have 6, but we could have lots. So it just helps them not know where the ending's going to be. So like, again, it's just trying to make it where you just think about, does it match my memory? Not does it compare? Who's the most like it? Do I have to pick out of these 6? Because no, maybe we have no idea who it is. Maybe we do not have the suspect. I mean, there's billions of people on the planet. There's a likelihood that we won't actually have your suspect on the first go round. So you should not feel obligated to choose one. All right, next one. The third rule for eyewitness procedures is instructions. So the way that we instruct our eyewitnesses. So if you're seeing this here from our last slide, we don't do this anymore. We don't line them up next to each other. We show them one at a time. But instructions. Instructions are a series of statements issued by a lineup administrator to the eyewitness to deter the eyewitness from feeling compelled to make a selection. So just making sure that they are very aware that there is a very good chance that the person's not in their lineup and they do not need to make a selection, that they might have to come in later to look at a new lineup, that, you don't have to pick one today if it doesn't actually match your memory. So they also prevent the eyewitness from looking to the lineup administrator for feedback. Because again, the administrator in the room shouldn't have any clue who these people are. They shouldn't be related to the case. They shouldn't know which one's a suspect. So they should not be able to provide feedback. So that's part of the instructions too, is they will tell the eyewitness that the administrator in the room doesn't know who the suspect is. The administrator in the room doesn't even know what case this is. They are literally just showing you your lineup. They are not going to be able to give you any kind of feedback to like, yes, you got it right, or anything like that. They should not be boosting the witness's confidence, because we could be accidentally boosting a witness's confidence who was wrong about their memory. So, example, one of the recommended instructions includes a directive that the suspect may or may not be present in the lineup. So it's just a series of things that the lineup administrator who's in the room has to say in order. The fourth procedure that we are supposed to be following is composing the lineup. So if you were looking at some of your Innocence Project cases, or you look at some of our things, or I guess if you're virtual, you probably don't get a chat with anyone. You'll get to see the kind of a breakdown of our examples from class, because we're going to like make this chart of people's breakdown of what they discovered from the little Innocence Project we did on Friday. But you won't get to like hear about other people's cases. So unless you just read quite a few of them, you maybe didn't notice. But in a lot of their cases, there was eyewitness procedure issues. One of the ones that I find to be pretty common when I read through those Innocence Project cases is the lineup is totally messed up, meaning that suspect photographs should be selected that do not bring unreasonable attention to the suspect. Non-suspect photographs and or live lineup members, so if they're in live in front of the witness or they're on photographs, either way, they should be selected based on their resemblance to the description provided by the eyewitness, as opposed to the resemblance to the police's suspect. That would kind of seem obvious, but it was not followed until this was put into strict rules. So like a suspect could have an eyewitness could have had a description that their attacker was an African-American male, 6'2", had a scruffy beard, and was wearing a green shirt. And then the only person that they put in the lineup, there'd be one person that fit that description. That was an African male, that was tall, that had a green shirt on, that had a beard. And then every other person wouldn't fit the description. So then what is the eyewitness to do but to focus in on that one person that fit what they thought and think, is this the guy? Is this the guy? And I'm not sure how much I've said this or how much y'all have heard it from videos. I know I've said it in class a lot, but y'all weren't there. So in traumatic events, our brain does not log memories the way it normally does. Anytime you're in a traumatic situation, which most victims would be, this is a traumatic situation for them, whatever kind of attack it was. Most of the time our bodies go into fight or flight. So fight or flight is when you have this big rush of hormones. You shut down things in your body that are unimportant because your body's only goal at that point is to live, is to get away. So one of the things that shut down is your hippocampus and your amygdala, which are two important pieces in your brain that store memories correctly or for long term. So it's not being stored correctly, these traumatic memories. And as the person comes in and they see a lineup and only one man fits their description, like let's say this was their description, tall, had glasses, had a goatee and a beard. But there's literally only one other person that has a beard. And maybe this person was thin, this person is not. So you're like, that's literally our only suspect that fits it. So now they're going to zero in on them and they're going to think, is it? And since their traumatic memory is it's not saved very well, they could very easily manipulate their malleable memory and put this guy's face into it. Just literally swap faces. When you don't know a stranger very well, it's very easy to change a memory like that. I know that it's weird to believe because I think most of us think our memories save. We think that we remember things, but in reality, we don't remember as well as we think we do. So anyways, in your lineup, you are only supposed to have people that look alike. And not only should they look alike, they should look like the eyewitness said they did. So if they said they were brunette with a beard, like medium build, like all those things, like then every single person in the lineup should look like that. You shouldn't pick anyone else because that's going to draw unreasonable attention to the people who do look like that. It's going to bring more attention to them. So everyone should look similar. That's the point of the lineup. All right, confidence statements. So the last two rules that are supposed to be done for eyewitness procedures is you are to have a confidence statement, which means that right after the lineup procedure, so right after they've looked at photos or right after they've looked at people in person, the eyewitness should provide a statement in his own words, his or her own words, that articulates the level of confidence that he or she has in the identification they just made. So this is something they could use in court. So they would go and they say, I thought that number 3 in the third picture I saw was the closest to my description. It was kind of dark that night, but I do think that he matches in my head, in my memory. I am 75% sure. Okay, so that document could be sent then to the court. So later, which we've seen this in multiple cases, where a woman or man would say, I'm 60, 70% sure when they did the lineup, but then by the time they get to court, which is usually months later, they'll say, I'm 100% sure that's the man. And it's because they've been thinking about that photo or they've been thinking about that man in the lineup for now months. They've been putting his face in their memory. They've been manipulating it. It's this whole time. So we need to know right after the procedure, how confident were you in that decision and why? And then the very last step is the lineup procedure should be documented. So they should be recorded. That is what we generally would do, is it should be recorded, but it's not required. But it does have to be documented in some way. So either the lineup procedure should be electronically recorded, which is what we want, or if this is not possible for whatever reason, then an audio version, so it can be, at least the sound can be recorded, or someone else should be in the room, another administrator, and they should be writing down everything that has been said the entire time. So literally every single statement has to be written down and turned in. So the best would be just all around being recorded, what's being seen and heard. If we can't do that, then at least what's been heard or it's been written down completely. And that is all our procedures. Yeah. So that's the end of today's notes, is just eyewitness procedures.